Hello again, this is Keilah, and I've got a special edition for you here. I've got a couple of essays that I wrote, and one of them unfortunately isn't dated. But let's see here. It had to be somewhere in the 80s, most likely, before 95. When I grew up, I wanted to be president or a famous poet. When I was a small child growing up in rural Alabama, I had big dreams. My mother and my grandmother had both told me that America was the most wonderful country in the world to be born into. They told me that I was free to be anything I wanted to be if I wanted it badly enough. Somewhere along the line, I learned that the president was the leader of the country. It struck me that if this were so, that there could be no higher job to hold. I decided that I would like to be president of the United States, and that it must be the best job in the whole world, since the United States was indeed the best country. A little later on, I embraced poetry and literature. If I could not be president, perhaps I could be a famous poet like Edgar Allan Poe or Lord Byron. I loved the written word. I loved the rhyme and the melody. I loved for once being able to set up free upon paper the longings in my heart. Time passed, and the hardships of my life intruded upon my childhood dreams. My home life was not very stable. I ended up dropping out of school and trying to subsidize my household's income. My mother had suffered another nervous breakdown, and since I had turned 18, I saw no viable alternative. Since that time, I've still written many poems, and I even registered to vote as soon as I could. I've never finished typing my poems because I've been too busy just trying to get by. I've not made any serious effort to break into the political field either at this point. I have tentatively signed up to work the polls for the November election, and I've been thinking of running for some elected office on a local level in the next few years. Since I work for state government, however, I'm not sure how this would affect my job. Like millions of others in this country and abroad, I cannot afford the luxury of quitting my job. I am currently a state accountant due to fickle fate and my own ambition. I started to work for the state as an office temporary in November of 1985. I was hired permanently in December of 1986 and have since received 3 promotions. One of those was a double-level promotion. It has become increasingly harder to even qualify for promotion, however, with all of the new job benchmarks set by state personnel in the governor's office. I think this was 1992. If I had my choice now of any career in the world, I suppose I would still lean towards public service and fame. I have not really decided for sure what I want to do with the rest of my life, but I think going back to school is the beginning of greater things to come. I'd still like to publish my poetry within the next 5 years. I've also kicked around the idea of changing my major from accounting to education. I've always loved learning, and I'd love to have at least 1 month off work a year to pursue my own dreams without feeling like I'm being a time thief. Perhaps after finishing this class, I will have a better idea of what I'd like to do. I don't want to stay in the gray, as you called it. Okay. I think we had a little technical difficulty there. It may have been 1994. I'm trying to think. And I'll have to look it up when the presidential election was. I think I went to work as an accountant in 92, and I did work the presidential election, work the polls when Clinton was elected. So now here's another little thing I wrote. July 14th, 1999. I guess it was kind of like a letter to myself. Today is the first day of the rest of my life. Do I dream? Yes. What do little girls dream of? Love, salvation, tenderness, passion, someone to love them for being who they are and not only as objects of visionary beauty, not only valued as a nice little package, a possession, or a slave. I dream in color, vivid, technicolor, with surround sound. Sometimes I look at my life and wonder why I chose to simply flow with the cresting waves rather than to take up the oars and choose my own course. Laziness, perhaps, maybe melancholy. I'm often melancholy. Is it naivete, such a horrible thing? Is being sensitive such a terrible fate? Sometimes I think they are. Too often I am disillusioned with life, with people. So often I disappoint those I love, and even myself. I cannot be perfect. I only wanted to be loved for who I am, but that is so difficult a goal. I have no power over it myself. I wanted to love and be loved like no others before. I wanted a love whose light outshone the sun. I wanted to live in the Garden of Eden with my soulmate. I keep on looking, but I fear I'm blind when it comes to love. I don't know if it's real when someone tells me they love me and that I have value. I question their sanity. I can't feel their love. Is it therefore unreal? I watched a movie tonight. The title of the movie was At First Sight. It was based on a true story, and it made me cry. The hero regains his sight for the first time since he was 3 years old, but he goes blind again. His new-found romance begins to sour, and the pathos wrung the tears from my heart. I sat alone, cried, thinking how sad. He just wanted to be accepted for himself, you see. His blind self. But he felt the burden of another's expectations. I too have had my expectations. I too know the sorrow of not being all another person needs to fulfill them. Now the movie Dragonheart is playing on my television. It's one of my favorite movies, although it makes me cry too. Sometimes crying is a good thing. It helps to purge the soul. I don't cry often, but it reminds me that I have a heart. Sometimes we get so caught up the day-to-day drudgeries that I forget to look at the sun. I forget to smell the roses, and I start to feel dead inside. It scares me. I try to be practical. I try to live up to my responsibilities. I'd like to save the world at times, and other times I just want to be happy. Then I feel small and miserable and selfish for thinking of myself. Why is that? Don't I deserve some measure of consideration? We women are raised to be nurturers. Perhaps it's also genetically ingrained. I've never been overly fond of babies in general, but I've always loved baby animals. I love grown animals too. The beasts of the fields, the predator, the fowls of the air, the creatures of the sea, all creatures great and small. I love them all. Love that story too. They're beautiful gifts from God, and they're so innocent in their creation. And death comes for them all, even in their innocence, because of our sins. The sins of humankind are many. It does not seem fair. Drago just died in the movie. He sacrificed himself to rid the world of an evil tyrant. It's really a beautiful movie. Who would not love Drago? I'm tired now. I'll try to read, then sleep. Good night. And so we'll end it there. Still love that movie, Dragonheart. Love and peace.